I seen that fucking drunk Mr. Leahy around here, trying to enforce lot sizes and setbacks and abandoning apartments. It's all a bit fucked if you ask me. Welcome back to Pop Culture Urbanism. Today we're looking at the urbanism behind Trailer Park Boys, the hilarious creation of Mike Clattenburg that spans 12 live-action seasons, 2 animated spin-off series, 3 feature-length films, countless live shows around the world, including a freaking cruise, a podcast, several travel show spin-offs. The list goes on, all focusing on the hijinks of Ricky, Bubbles, and Julian, and the mobile home community around them, Sunnyvale Trailer Park. Beyond its outrageous humor, what's so fascinating about the show is how it portrays the life of poverty. Where sitcoms like My Name is Earl or The Jeffersons have an aspirational ethos of moving on up, Trailer Park Boys doesn't really look down on their impoverished lifestyle, and in fact, the characters are genuinely content with their community. All they want is to hang out, get drunk, and eat some chicken fingers. As series creator Mike Clattenburg puts it, the idea isn't to make trailer parks look bad or have fun at their expense. It's about the people in the show playing the cards they're dealt. I know we usually think of trailer parks as prop pieces for tornado disaster movies or backdrops to hillbilly stereotypes, but allow me to flip the script. Any discussion of trailer parks should start with the fact that most forms of low-income housing has been criminalized in nearly every major city in North America. Beginning in the 1920s, urban policymakers and planners started banning what they deemed low-quality housing, including boarding houses, residential hotels, and low-quality apartments. At the same time, on the outer edges of cities, urban policymakers undertook a policy of mass eviction and demolition of low-quality housing. They banned suburban shanty towns and self-built housing, and in their place required a very stringent regime of design and construction regulations meant specifically for a growing white middle class that owned automobiles. If you didn't fit that description, especially if you're poor, then...
Hear that? Sounds of the whispering winds of shit.
But in many unincorporated regions and places where they just hadn't made these zoning plans yet, transient and low-income residents formed mobile home communities. This lack of regulatory plans is actually what makes trailer parks like Sunnyvale affordable for people like Ricky, Bubbles, and Julian. There are tons of laws to compare, but the best to illustrate this, I think, is the minimum lot size, the smallest square footage a parcel of land can legally be. In wide swaths of the Halifax area, where Trailer Park Boys is based, like in most of North America, they're zoned for single-family housing only, and the minimum lot size for a single-family home in Halifax is 5,000 square feet, which is a way of saying if you want to live anywhere in these zones, you also need to buy at least 5,000 square feet of land. Meanwhile, the minimum lot size for a mobile home in nearby Beaver Bank, where they filmed the first season, is 0. This means you can live in a home on as small a parcel of land as you want or can afford. As an example, you can rent a 1,000 square foot lot and be able to fit a 400 square foot mobile home on the property, side parking for your car, and still have a front porch and a small backyard too. And while the math is more complicated than this, living on a 1,000 square foot lot versus a 5,000 square foot lot could be 80% cheaper because you're taking up significantly less space. For a community of fixed income seniors and guys who didn't finish their grade 10s, every dollar counts. These kinds of urban planning decisions have serious ramifications for some of our most economically vulnerable populations. The proof is in the numbers. Julian's 1-bedroom double-wide trailer, which also benefits from efficiency gains in manufacturing, only cost about $30,000 American. Compare that to your average site-built single-family home, which cost about $330,000 American. As a rental, it would cost Julian only about $650, including lot fees and utilities, while median rent in Halifax is $1,290, just about double that of Julian's trailer. This affordability goes hand in hand with the trailer park's ability to promote incredible density. You can see this right away when you look at Sunnyvale on the map. Look at how much more dense the trailer park is compared to the single-family neighborhood right next door. You have narrower roads, you can have tiny backyards, if any at all, and you can live in a smaller parcel of land. Maybe you can even live in a shed with your kitties.
I mean, just look at this place. It's like a palace.
Now, as a side note, Halifax has only recently begun allowing people to rent out accessory dwelling units similar to Bubbles' shed. Ironically, despite oftentimes being the voice of reason and following the law, Bubbles' living situation has probably been one of the most consistently illegal things in the entire franchise, to say nothing of the bootleg electrical work. Okay, sorry, back to my point. My point is that trailer parks combine especially liberal land use and design regulations to create an affordable and dynamic community. Now, I'm not saying we should all convert all of our cities and towns into mobile home communities, though that wouldn't be so bad. I am highlighting the ways in which land use is strictly controlled by government policy, largely at the expense of low or even moderate income communities. And it's in these more open regulatory areas like Sunnyvale that they can find organic solutions to their housing problem. Consider the alternative. Where do people like Ricky or Randy or Bubbles go if not for an affordable place like Sunnyvale? Government-sponsored affordable housing projects can often cost $250,000 or even $350,000 a unit to construct. Or worse, they could just stay in jail, where each inmate costs about $312 a day. In the very first season, when Ricky and Julian returned to Sunnyvale after 18 months in prison, they cost more than $350,000 to the taxpayer before the show even begins. And in the newest Trailer Park Boys show, Trailer Park Boys: Jail, where almost everyone is ending up in Sunnyvale Correctional, each month is costing the public about $65,000. Consider this integral urbanist question. What's the optimal mix and provision of public law and services? They have to deal with these conflicts. They have to organize and maintain certain land uses, especially for common areas like parks, roads, and entrances. And they have to provide a level of order, cleanliness, and safety. The conventional way to answer these questions is through a single entity, like a government. Otherwise, a private entity, like a corporation of some sort. This is generally how we deal with governments. That is, all the things that our behaviors are regulated by and for the provision and protection of the commons. And to a large extent, it works. But there are many examples, especially on the local level, where these aren't optimal, or they have skewed incentives, or they actually don't even do their job. For instance, Officer Green and the Halifax Police Department don't actually patrol Sunnyvale. They only come when Mr. Leahy calls on them, and they don't have the necessary knowledge of the community, nor their buy-in as legitimate keepers of the law.
Who's the officer in charge here?
I thought you were in charge, Jim. Why aren't you on duty?
I've always been on duty, George. Always.
Even Mr. Leahy and Randy can't fully exercise their community policing powers without a great deal of cooperation from the community.
Officer Leahy, you're the only man that can take care of this situation.
Cover me, boy.
The closest anyone has been able to force their way into this governance role was probably Cyrus in the first episode. He's an outsider coming in and he threatens them all with a gun. But ultimately, the emergent order of Sunnyvale society prevails when Julian returns as a legitimate community leader. This is key to understanding the greater rebellion that is the Trailer Park Boys. Their decisions are governed not by centralized authorities, whether that's the trailer park supervisor or the police, but by polycentric sources of legitimacy and purpose.
Smokes, let's go.
This is pointed out most abundantly by Nobel laureate Elinor Ostrom. Her seminal work showed how local communities manage common pool resources with greater success than central authorities. Her work actually started with researching how small and large police departments in the 1970s operated in their communities. She found that smaller police departments with more involvement of the community consistently performed better and had greater perception by their own residents than the larger, more centralized police departments, even if the larger ones had better funding and technology. This demonstrates a great deal of true urbanist wisdom. As Renegade Jane Jacobs pointed out, there is no logic that can be superimposed on the city. People make it, and it is to them, not buildings, that we must fit our plans. Echoed by contemporary planner Alain Berthaud, he explains the role of government is not to be a superhero central coordinator, but is to be essentially a glorified janitor. Their first job is to maintain the quality of infrastructure and services as the city organically changes. What all of these thinkers are getting at is that order in a city emerges from the bottom up. The Trailer Park Boys, and Sunnyvale more broadly, is a community of outcasts, people left out of plans optimized for big suburban housing tracts. In their little slice of land, they create their own emergent order. Whether that's setting up a hair salon where they're not technically zoned for it, letting Bubbles live in a legal shed, or just getting drunk and eating some chicken fingers. That's all for today's episode of Pop Culture Urbanism. I've been your host, Nolan Gray. If you like what you saw today, be sure to hit that like button. You can hit the dislike button if you want. I don't really care. Nobody can see it, so go ahead. Let us know what you thought of the video in the comments down below. And there will be more Pop Culture Urbanism on the way, so hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next episode.